All right, guys, welcome back to another podcast by Mining Store. This week's actually our first trial of running a project-specific podcast. So the project that we're going to be looking into is Kadena. And the reason why we've chosen Kadena as a project is because just recently we've started supplying the Kd3 miners to our community and our members. So we actually got plugged by the KDA project last week on Twitter. And we got in touch with some of the awesome community members that are within the KDA project, and that left us here with Cameron Bryant, who is got quite a history with KDA, and was actually how he found his way into crypto as well. So, Cameron, do you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction to the audience, and then we'll jump into looking at a bit about the KDA project?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm Cameron. My background really, in life comes from the film industry. I am an actor of like 25 years, started when I was like 6. So, naturally, a few years ago, I've kind of always had my own crypto, and I was like actually sitting on my couch with a friend watching like Business News Network. It's about Ethereum and mining and Bitcoin. And my buddy had asked, like, how do you mine? And I was kind of like, I don't know. Googled it, found start mining in 30 minutes or less. Started mining on my gaming computer that I had for like 4 years at that point. And I was like, I could have been doing this 4 years ago on this computer. And that was the light bulb moment. And so I went down the mining rabbit hole. And that's kind of where, at the time, there were, really like, I don't know, a handful of good options, I would say. And so, yeah, that led me to Kadena. And crypto, I guess. And that's kind of the long story short version. But yeah.
No, it's literally the exact way that I found myself in crypto as well. My business partner Cal and I, we were building the computers for ourselves, similar to you, for gaming or for school, whatever it was. And then figured out through online kind of socials that we could be mining Bitcoin. Started doing it. It was really small back then, kind of 2014, 2015 is when we were really getting into it. And then 2017 came around, and really started to, hey, we actually have a skill here to mine something that's earning quite a lot of money. So it's a great community. We get to meet people like yourself, Cameron, and there's always interesting things happening as well. So on that note, we'll go into just a little bit of a breakdown of kind of what Kadena is, what separates it from other blockchains, and if you have any comments, Cameron, light bulb moments as to, yep, that's how I resonated with it, just jump in and let us know.
Definitely.
But basically, guys, Kadena is a project that was formed by some guys from JP Morgan. Is that correct, Cameron?
I think they worked. It's what's the
one of
name
them.
of it? They were at their blockchain center of excellency or something crazy. But yeah, they worked, for JP Morgan in their crypto division, and I think it was, they themselves say that it was kind of the golden time as well. Like all these things that we know now, like Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, all of those, they actually saw like early stages. Those guys came through when they were doing their VC run, and they got to delve into that. So yeah, obviously that was one of the main things, the team really, and their credentials. Like when I was looking at the other options for myself, for miners, it really resonated to me that when you look into a lot of these companies, at least myself, when I have looked into a lot of companies, because there's millions out there to see now, you don't find a lot of actual like history in crypto. Like they might be good developers, or they might be from like cybersecurity or some sort of other tech industry, but they don't actually have like 15 years in crypto. They're more like, oh, I want to get in crypto now and I know how to work a computer, right? And so these guys, for me, again, out of the options when I was looking, it was like, oh, these guys have actually, not only having Stuart Haber as an advisor, one of the guys who was making like blockchain in the 80s on like, Windows XP and stuff. So it's like, yeah, it's just kind of crazy, the background of the team. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
exactly. And
Again, I can ramble. I can
no,
ramble.
no, I'm the exact same, but I
Yeah.
tend to agree with you. It's nice to see that not only do they come from such a strong company, they're quite high up there, and on top of that, they've got quite a length of experience directly in the
I,
crypto division as well.
Yeah, I think they actually as well, when they were with JP Morgan, I think they also actually worked on their first coin, which is now called Juno or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I'm pretty sure. So they had actually developed a crypto for JP Morgan back then as well. So that's even something that's interesting, you know? It's like, a lot of people probably don't even know JP Morgan's been doing that long, right? So yeah,
And then I
it's
guess the
interesting.
benefit as well was the other half also came from the SEC division of the blockchain as
Yeah,
well.
right. Yeah, Will Martino, right?
Yeah, so I guess a vast majority of those people have been around this industry for quite some time and quite a bit of expertise behind it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those things where obviously, especially for me, I was looking into mining, right? And, I mean, I would think that most people when you're looking into mining, like for myself, it was, I'm trying to get into a coin for the future. It's like, yeah, can I find a Bitcoin, right? That it's like, well, I wish I could have been mining Bitcoin 10 years ago, but now it's like that opportunity. It's funny because I was one of those people that you look at it and you say like, I've missed the boat, right? But it's like in reality, if you're now into crypto and you do a bit of research, you realize that like there's like
Massive
plenty of room for, yeah, exactly. It's like and it's like it's going to be like anything else in life, that not every cryptocurrency, or there isn't going to be one cryptocurrency that does everything, like there will be multiple chains in the future, they'll have multiple uses, right? And so again, for me, it was like, I want to set up for the future, and you just looking into, which we'll talk on later, I'm assuming, like the tokenomics behind it, the team, even their stake in their own coin, their limit or the years they're holding it for, which is quite a
100%.
few, it's like, so yeah, it's just the stuff for me. I was like, well, these guys actually look like they believe in their own project, but not
And it's so
worried
important,
about,
right? Like, there's so many projects out
yeah,
there. You really need to have these teams that, like actually trying to change something. They're not just trying to spin something
yeah,
up to make a quick
yeah,
dollar or
exactly,
pump a price or something. That they're
yeah,
trying to implement, revolutionary technology. So that's awesome. I mean,
definitely,
one of the other notes I want to make to members, it's obviously a very fast blockchain as well and can process a lot of transactions. Again, we're not going to go into the deep details as to why that's possible, but I believe it can process around 500,000, 500,000 transactions per second, is the possibility. Would you be able to comment on that, Cameron?
yeah. So the way that I understand it is basically, and I could butcher it. It's layer one. So they've got their layer one, which is technically Kadena, and then their layer two, which is Curo, which is a private blockchain that basically they work together. So yes, the potential is there, but I think as of right now, they don't actually work off of each other. But the Kadena is actually, yeah, like what's nice about it is obviously in recent times we've seen plenty of blockchains, shut off and so on and so forth. And Kadena is not foreign to it either. Like we have never shut off, but again, like we've had, we've gotten clogged and so on and so forth. But a lot of that, again, it comes down to like the growing pains of it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Even the Kadena team themselves, they've actually said they're waiting for those big companies to come and actually like break them, right? Because then they know like, okay, this is what we now need to fix or do better, right?
100%.
And so, yeah, that's, again, it's all the growing pains, of that. And so, yeah, sorry, I got lost on the question.
No, that's a perfect answer. It's good insight.
Ramble too much.
Good inside knowledge. And the other thing is that not even I really knew until I started looking into the project a bit more. That I found very interesting is it is actually a multi-chain project. So you're not like Bitcoin where you just got block after block being formed in the one chain, and obviously it verifies in the previous chain the hash and then brings that across. It's actually a multi-chain, and it moved into 2020 from 10 to 20 chains. And so now when you've just say you've got 20 chains running alongside each other, they all have to communicate with each other and tell each other that, yes, this is a valid block, and then we can move on, which from my understanding highly increases security and highly increases scalability. So something very interesting. Is that something that you made with inside the Kadena community that people harp on about and boast about a bit, Cameron, or something that's just
Yeah,
out there,
so it's, well, the one thing right now is it's actually funny because it's like the way that I would explain Kadena as well to like newcomers is it is one of those things where there are kind of those hurdles, right? A lot of people find it with Kadena because again, it's a young blockchain. It's got its own coding language. Like it's different in so many different ways, right? And so one of the things is the multi-chain, which right now is a bit hectic, but they're working on what's the word? I can't remember the word, but they're working on basically making it so that, as of right now, when you're dealing with like a D app or whatnot, they are on individual chains, which is obviously a cool feature. And that's something that, is the, like what you're saying, right? If you have things like Ethereum, well, if you have 5 massive NFT collections that just so happen to launch the same day, your gas prices go through the roof, blah, 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 blah. Well, on Kadena, in theory, not necessarily right now, but in theory, you could have those 5 projects launch on 5 different chains at the same time. Right. Therefore, those 5 chains would have equal amount of load rather than one chain having all 5 projects. So yeah, there's huge, ways to use that or utilize that as projects, and everything. But as of right now, you also have to interact on that blockchain. So, or on that chain, sorry. So like if I am trying to buy an NFT on chain 8, I have to send myself Kadena from like chain 1 to chain 8 to then buy on chain 8, where they're working on that now. Again, I can't remember the term.
Or it's kind of like
not interoperable, but they're working on basically being able to pull funds from all chains for one transaction on a chain. I just can't remember the name that they literally
the concept very well though.
So that's kind of one of the hurdles that for new people coming in, they'll be like, oh, why can't I buy this? Or like, why don't I have my Kadena? Or like, I sent 50 Kadena to Binance on chain 1. Where did it go? And it's like, oh, well, Binance is on chain 2. So it's like there's certain things that, it's like people just kind of shake their head at. But again, it's because we're so new. This tech is brand new. They're still making it, right? So it's growing pains again. But yeah, to speak on what you're actually talking about the security and everything, to my understanding, that's it as well as the way they call it the chain web kind of thing. And it's, I think every chain has to connect at least or does to 2 other chains. So whenever you are, and that's the thing, Stuart does a much better job of explaining all this and I don't, but it's kind of the way that like basically every transaction is verified like 3 times at least or something like that by the different chains. So yeah, it increases your security, and then as they scale, that chain web, so to speak, just gets bigger, which, by their saying, it increases your scalability, obviously, your throughput and your security, because you're just adding more chains to then verify those already, 3 verifications
you can think
or
of it
whatever.
as like, kind of like sharing the load to a degree, right? So it makes a lot of sense. And as I said, it was one of the interesting things that usually that's what gets me involved in a project is like doing something different, but actually having a bit of money behind them and experience behind them to make it actually do something and not just an idea. So definitely something I love about Kadena there. Now getting into the tokenomics, and Taylor and I, we had a good deep dive the other day into understanding how the distribution of the tokens work, how the mining works and everything like that. So from my understanding, at the moment, there's been 200 million tokens that are basically in circulation.
Yeah, it's funny. I haven't looked in a while, but probably around there now. But yeah, and yeah, that's the thing is, it's funny because that's, you know, again, to you yourself knowing proof of work and knowing Bitcoin, it's funny because it's like I see that interaction with like friends of mine who are into crypto. They're used to like going on CoinGecko and looking up like the total supply and the available supply and being like, oh, this is VC owned. And that's what they always say, because they're like, well, where's all the supply? And I'm like, well, it hasn't been mined yet. And they're like, oh, what? And it's like, yeah, this works differently, man. But yeah, so it's interesting because the one thing that I, you know, first looked at was they just kind of looked sound as far as the tokenomics, you know, I think it's like mineable over the next 100 years, I think, or something like that. The total supply, I should say. And then really the one big thing for myself was, you know, looking at the team tokens. I think it was like 2.5% or something like that they have, and it's locked for 10 years. And that was the thing that I was like, oh, like they don't even want to cash out on this for the next 10 years. So in my mind, I was like, okay, well, yeah, it might not be now, but they, again, as I said earlier, they believe in their project. You know, it's like they're not like, oh, I'm going to take my money in a year and a half because I'm ready to sell and get out after a year and a half. You know, it's like, so for me, at least as an investor, that's kind of what I looked at as one of the tokenomics kind of standard like features or points or whatever that stood out to me was that exactly. I was kind of like, okay, well, I at least feel that they're confident that in 10 years they're going to be somewhere. And I was like, that's how I think, you know. It's like, yeah, in 10 years I want to be good, you know.
Keeps them incentivized over a longer period of time, as opposed to
exactly.
we've achieved something and you get a bit of a bull run and then we're all cashing out and then project disappears. So I think as a recap there's 700 million KDA to be mined over 100 plus years. 200 million is emitted over 9 years, and I believe that's to the team and public. I would assume there. And then there was 90 million to strategic investors and partners, and then we've got there was a burn at launch of 10 million. So for people watching, there's the details there. Obviously, they've got a really informative website at KDA. You can go onto the white paper, look into the more details. Taylor, did you want to run through? Do you want to run through that what we went through the other day with how the mining works and how it kind of is similar to Bitcoin?
Yeah. So I guess in the sense of Bitcoin's halving, KDA has a similar approach, but it's a staggered approach over obviously the next 100 plus years, in the sense that every 6 months KDA goes through a rewards halving, in the sense that throughout a 20-year period there's a set amount of KDA to be mined. If that supply runs shorter in that 6 months, the difficulty readjusts every 6 months henceforth, and then halves every time. So the longer you go on, obviously the similar to Bitcoin, half.
So of that kind of 700 million tokens that's going to be distributed over 100 years, it kind of happens in that 20-year period, right? So the next 350 million, or let's just keep it simple, say it was 800 million that was going to be distributed. In 20 years' time, it'll be 400 million that will be distributed in the next period. And then the next 20 years, only 200 million, and then 100 million, 50 million, 25. So it slowly kind of, gives more out over the first 20 years and then reduces, and it will be 100 years before it kind of all gets out there. So exactly. Interesting way of doing it. And then you've also got that element in there that you said, Taylor, that it readjusts the difficulty every 6 months or so. And that makes sure that if a whole heap of miners jump on the network, that a portion for the 20 years isn't going to be mined in the first 1 or 2 years. That it keeps it distributing out throughout the 20s. So really, really interesting. Again, I like it when you get a bit of this tokenomics behind projects, and you actually can see that they've thought out the distribution. They're not just going, let the people decide what it is, and it all goes to shit.
It's different in a sense that it's not everyone fight for the exact same thing for the next 4 years halving wise. It's sort of there. Just that triggers there to try and protect the economics behind the mining.
Well, and one thing like that I've myself have learned, especially in the mining, to compare it to Bitcoin and stuff, is a lot of it's the pools, right? It's ran by pools kind of thing. And yes, you can solo mine, but your odds of solo mining are a lot more difficult normally than being with a pool or obviously a farm or whatnot. But with Kadena, at least to date, anytime I had my miner running, I saw people in the community that would actually, you're able to host your own node and run a chain link node or something. Again, the specifics, I might be messing up on that, but you're able to basically run your own solo mine, and they were actually producing 9 times out of 10 within like a 10% variance of someone that was on the biggest pool. Yeah. So that's another cool feature of Kadena. And as well, I don't, again, know the exact specifics of it, but I'm pretty sure for those power questionable people is that as our difficulty rises or whatnot, it actually, the power draw doesn't rise because of the way that we are actually able to scale. So it's not like Bitcoin in that sense that our literal power draw just has to keep going up as it gets more difficult. So that's another feature, at least, that I've heard the team claim that, and it's one of those things where when you really know the power draw side of it, like even Bitcoin doesn't harm the world as much as most industries do, but it's still one of those things that it's in people's minds, and it's a good thing to have. And they've announced it prior, but they have a green mining initiative that they're going to be announcing as well, which we know now basically, like, I don't know the numbers, but I know that a very high percentile of all mining power is more or less from renewable sources now anyways, just because it's more efficient, right? Like everyone's going to want to pay the least, and if it's renewable energy, then everyone's doing good. 100%. But they're actually, like, they've explained it, just it hasn't started yet as far as I know, but they've explained it very kind of vaguely, I guess. But they're going to basically try and work out a way that if you're able to prove that you are mining your Kadena via green ways, they're going to like boost your hash rate or like your rewards. Like I can't remember how they were trying to, and of course they were talking about it, and someone was like, that sounds pretty centralized or something. And I was like, oh, give me a break. I'm like, I'll let them know where I live if they're gonna give me 20% more Kadena for what I mine. Like, give me a break. Yeah. But yeah. So anyways, so yeah, it's just, again, like they're thinking about those kind of things, they're not just like, hey, let's forget about that and worry about it when it comes. It's like, well, let's just mention, like, we're thinking about something that, hey, if you use green energy, we'll find out a way to make it beneficial for you, and it's like, even that, it's like, to the outside looking in, that's like a check mark, it's like, oh, okay, cool, they care about the world,
But yeah, from the get-go, they've got that mindset, right? Like, rather than
rather than, oh, we're taking too much power, now we need to do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be really interested to see how they go about verifying it. And as you said, I suppose if you can verify it, then you can get the reward. It's not like just because you're using green energy you're going to get the reward. You're going to have to verify it in some way. But yeah, it would definitely be interesting. It'll also be interesting to see whether they will have maybe a reserve, like that it doesn't actually come from the mining block reward, like it comes from their own treasury reward, and they'll like incentivize people to do it, or whether it will directly come from the chain. But yeah, the interesting point, I wasn't 100% aware. I did see the green mining initiative, but I wasn't 100% sure on, and I'm still not on exactly how.
And they haven't explained too much about it either. I've only heard them speak about it before, very vaguely, like I said. They're like, we're just going to figure out a way to help them out. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But yeah, either way, again, it's just, it's good that the thought is there, right?
100%. Now, something we were talking about in the pre-interview, back on the mining topic, that I found really interesting, we all kind of agreed on. You previously came from what was the first miner? The Kd5 was the first miner?
Yeah, the Kd5. Yeah, Kd5. I bought the Kd5.
Right, and you bought that and you mined for a bit, and you said even yourself you're always aware that maybe a Bitmain could come through and outperform this miner. Now that's
even before Bitmain, we knew that the KD6 was coming, and Gold Shell had their K1 Max or whatever, and then we had I don't know what happened to them, but we had a random kind of other company pop up that was going to start making miners, with their first miner being a Kadena miner, fast miners they're called. And yeah, don't know what ended up happening with that one. Might have been a rug. Who knows? But yeah, but either way, it was one of those things where we knew, you know,
it was coming.
October of last year that like new miners were coming and they were going to be stronger. So it was, you know, again, it's the
yeah, I mean,
it
that's
adds
the
to
fun
the
of it, right? Like
volatility.
if you feel like it's worth the risk, if you feel like it's worth the risk, then you go for it. But I think now, and a reason why, I mean, on from a business perspective, me and Cal have bought some of the Kd3s. You know, a lot of our clients are buying them. It's always comforting, although people don't want big players like Bitmain to come in at first. When they do come in, and you know, you see the hash rate go from 70 or 80 to 160, you're like, okay, now we're probably closer to the top limit, and we're not going to really see it double in that hash rate again. So, and that's been the feedback from a lot of our clients as well, that, you know, the reason why they're going a bit harder on this altcoin miner is, you know, they think that this last for a bit longer. Now, in terms of predicting what the hash rate is going to be when all of these Kd3s come on to the market, I think, Taylor, you know, found some interesting threads online and was speaking to some people. Do you want to maybe comment on that?
Yeah, and like obviously I'd love Cameron's input from as well, being obviously he's been mining this for longer than I have, considering I only bought 2 of these miners. They're not online yet. But I guess looking at the hash rate of the last sort of like 2 months, you can obviously see like a pretty decent spike. I'll just pull it up roughly date-wise, but about a month prior to where they announced the Ka3s. So sort of sometime in late August, right? And it was going at around 180, 190 petahash. And then obviously at the moment we're sitting at around that 280 level. So it has jumped up a decent amount, hasn't jumped up a ton, but to me and to like a lot of people online, that sort of signifies Bitmain using these miners already. And it's sort of been, I guess, a fair bit of conjecture about it on Twitter for the past, you know, month about, you know, why has it gone up 60 to 80% when realistically a gold shell hasn't been pumping out that many miners. And to be honest, you know, we haven't sold a ton of them, so I can't imagine too many people were. Because considering that they're priced, you know, KD Max at the moment still is around that sort of 14, 15K area, depending on where you get it from. So,
yeah,
you know, to me that's ludicrous. But obviously, you know, running. So where could it go? You know, I think,
and so, you know, like again, like I had mentioned, so I got my KD5. I think I'm trying to think now. I think my KD5 was basically the second batch that would have been sold. Like they sold the original batch early 2021. Yeah, so early 2021, and I caught, of course, just the tail end of that. So I bought mine, you know, like I said, third party, so I paid too much at the time, but it wasn't. It was irrelevant a lot later. But yeah, either way, you know, yeah, like I took that deep dive kind of, right? Like you know, I chose to start crypto with an ASIC. I was like, yeah, just go straight for the gold, right? But yeah, in reality, like so when I got my miner, like I said, I think so my order was supposed to be the like August order, and then there was an order that came out right after as well. So I got my miner in like the middle of September after hounding the people. And then because yeah, I always thought that was funny. I was like, you know, these guys have it plugged in, just chilling there. When as soon as I complained, they're like, "Don't worry, we'll send it to you tomorrow." And I was like, "Oh, you have it now?" Like, I was like, "What are you talking about?" But yeah, anyways, they had to test it, right? Make sure it worked. But yeah, no. Anyways, but no. So yeah, when I got my miner in like September, as I said, I mined. I think it was 1,000 Kadena my first month, and then like. So, okay, wait, sorry, to put that in better terms. What was it? I think I was doing about 20 KDA a day when I started. Does that math work out? I don't know. I should just do the math on 1,000. I'm like, I don't even know. 30, what's 30? Yeah, but either way, basically within the first like 3 or 4 months, it had gone down quite severely. Like I was sitting at, for the majority of my time, I was making anywhere from like, I think like 8 to 12 Kadena a day with my KD5. And then that was up until we could kind of tell almost the same thing that, you know, people were talking about now. It was like, I want to say like, yeah, probably like October, November of last year, there was a massive spike in it. Well, I mean, for our hash rate, there was a massive spike in it. And that was immediately when the speculation started of the KD6s. Everyone was like, oh, that's Gold Shill plugging in the KD6s, make sure they're working. And yeah, it was like 3 weeks later, we got the notice that they were going to be doing the pre-orders for the KD6, right? So people were pretty bang on with that, I guess. But yeah, either way, yeah, like if I could say it's going to have an effect, I would say it's going to have a fairly large effect. Like I'm looking on ASIC miner value, of course, right now, and it's saying it'll make $61 a day. But I would definitely say that's going to go down, you know.
I mean, I think most people that
probably put it around like maybe 20, 30, you know, because like my KD5, shoot, I wish I could actually ask somebody right now what their KD5 is doing, because my KD5, I was just lucky. My KD5 was really good. I was always just one of those people that they would, you know, everyone would be like, how much did you get today? And I'd always be on the higher end of everyone else's. So I was just a lucky guy, got a really good, you know, miner. You get good ones and you get bad ones, I guess.
So where does that leave you standing now? Are you going to be looking at a Kd3?
I would, you know, again, like sadly, at the time I was in a better living situation. So I was actually able to house my own miner. I set up you know, here in Canada, we have to do a whole different voltage and blah, blah, blah. So I had a breaker put in and all that fun stuff. And again, it was the journey, right? Like I was, you know, doing something, and the day I plugged that miner in felt so good. You know, it was 6 months of waiting where I sent 15K into the nether and was like, hopefully I get my miner, you know, like I don't even know, right? Like it might not even show up. So I was the crazy person. But yeah, like I'm not done with mining by any means. Like it becomes, you know, sadly, it becomes kind of an addiction, you know?
Yeah.
Especially, you know, I didn't buy like a Bitcoin miner and start paying to mine Bitcoin and be that guy, right? Like I was like, I bought a miner and I took a dice roll and it worked out, right? Like, yes, I could say I took an educated guess. You know, I did my research on like, I think what were my options at the time for ASICs. It was basically, you know, like an Ethereum ASIC, which I was not wanting. I didn't want to buy whatsoever because I just knew the merge was coming. And I was like, nope, don't know how long it'll last. Might be a paper week next week. Who knows, right? That's just not my choice.
With the mining, Cameron, did you think about like now, like with the living situation being different, and you're probably more experienced in the market now as well, you understand what it entails. Have you thought about getting into hosting?
Yeah, I know for sure if I ever got a miner now, I'd have it hosted just because it's much easier, you know. And yeah,
it's pretty much like the first thing that we say to clients, like that feeling you have of plugging it in for the first time is pretty unreal. But like we always say to our clients, like, what's the reason that you're buying the miner? And most of them like to make money. It's like, okay, like what's your electrical rate that you're paying? You know, do you want to deal with the noise? Do you want to deal with the etc.? So, I mean, we'd love to take you on board and host your miners as well when you do want to get back into it, and any of your audience as well. You know, we're hosting pretty close to 3,000 miners now, and people are pretty happy, and it's just a bit easier to scale out as well, right? Like if you decide, okay, awesome, I'm making really good money here, I want to buy another one, and you don't have to put the extra breaker in, or you don't have to put the extra, you know, power restriction in. You can just be like, hey guys, I want another one, and then we can get it all sorted for you. But that's good. I mean, we've covered a lot here. I mean, I had some pre-questions that I wanted to ask you, Cameron. I think we've kind of weaved them in throughout the interview and answered a lot of them. But before we finish up, I might get you to say, like, maybe, is there any misconceptions about KDA or some things that you think people really should know about KDA to finish off?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wish I could say there's misconceptions. I mean, there probably are. I just don't really hear them. But no, no. I think if anything, it's just one of those things where think someone had actually put it up the other day. It was a GPU thing, but anyways, it's like, what was I going to say there? It's kind of like, if you're looking to get into mining, at least, you know what I mean? And not only that, but crypto, it's just kind of one of those things where just do your research, you know? We're kind of, it's a shame to say, but Kadena is one of those companies that we're in need of growth right now, you know, like they're a tech company. So I think that's almost, I could say, like the misconception, or maybe again, like someone might look poorly upon us, is that nothing happens fast on Kadena. You know, it's not like, but it's because they want to make, you know, revolutionary, groundbreaking tech. They want to lay this foundation that then builders can build upon. And so that's, you know, like we've just had the first Kadena Eco grant. So it's actually like a third-party grant company, and they've started off with $100 million for developer grants. Obviously, they did their first cohort, I think they called it. I think there was like five companies, six companies, and obviously they're focusing on the infrastructure right now, you know, like a lot of these grants. So we've got, you know, Lago building bridges and stable coins and all that fun stuff. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where if I can say for people to look into, just look into Kadena purely, you know, it's just
the white paper, you know, watch a couple videos.
Check out it's very simple. Like I came, you know, literally, like I don't have any education in crypto. I don't have any education in finance. I don't like to think I'm smart. I like to think I'm fairly, you know, whatever. Maybe I am. I don't know. But all it took me was really like a quick look at their website, and it was pretty simple to see, you know, that there's at least amazing potential there. And then, yeah, you just look into the tech, as he said, the white paper, you know, check out, you know, obviously Kadena's on Twitter and stuff, but the Twitter communities are very active. We've got actually I haven't been in there in a while myself, actually, because I actually haven't been mining, but we have an amazing mining community as well. You know, plenty of people that, you know, make connections. We've had deals before, you know, community deals and everything. So yeah, like I've learned so much just about crypto from dealing with the Kadena community. They're all, you know, very knowledgeable people. And, you know, again, I think it stems from Kadena wanting to be, and they've always said that they're going to be interoperable as well. Like they want to be IBC compatible, you know, all that kind of stuff. So again, I think it comes from like a lot of the people, even if they're a Kadena maxi, they don't just deal with Kadena. Like we have a very knowledgeable community about all things crypto. So yeah, just come on out and check it out. Pretty much.
It can be the gateway. What would people use to say? Gateway drug, but gateway coin to get
pretty much. Pretty much the same thing, right?
That's awesome. Well. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks so much for your time, Cameron. It's just really nice to hear from, you know, people that are really heavily involved with projects. Most people these days are really across so many and know bits and pieces of them, but to actually be so involved with the Kadena community, have done some mining yourself, and potentially looking to expanding further in the mining. We really appreciate you coming on. And we're actually also, the final thing, we're going to do a giveaway. We're going to do a KDA box. So if you want to post that out to your members as well, chance for them to win. I think they're valued around 3,000 Aussie, like 1,900 USD. So we're going to do one of those giveaways. It can be, as you said, sometimes when you get the thing yourself and you plug it in, it's a nice way to kind of get started with everything. So feel free to pump that out. And yeah, I suppose that's pretty much everything. And thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me as well. And yeah. Thanks. Yeah, thanks. And and definitely will, you know, I'm glad to make the acquaintance for sure. Cause yeah, I'm always kind of, again, it's with when finances are better. Right now I'm on the make my own project thing. So all my money is going towards that. But yeah, when I get around to it, you know, I definitely want to mine and Kadena, you know, again, it's like anything else, you know, you don't really want to have all your, you know, bread in one basket, so to speak. But yeah, like Kadena, as far as the miners out there right now, not financial advice, but I think it's a pretty sound investment, myself at least, as long as you said, do your research on the costs of running a miner. And, because yeah, like I had people that, like, I had conversations with people where they would literally, have a miner sitting in their house and they'd be like, why can't I plug it in? And we'd be like, oh, like, did you just plug it into 120? And they're like, yeah, and it turned it on and it didn't quite work. And it's like, no, like, people just don't know, right? And it's like, you just ruined a $20,000 toy, right? Like, come on. It's like,
it's literally, it comes back to one of those reasons why we literally tell everyone just host. I mean, if you really want to plug something in, go and buy an old generation miner, see how it goes. Or, I mean, some people have free power, right? And, they know what they're doing. Okay, go for it. But for the average miner, and it's your first time, don't do cloud mining. I really don't recommend that.
I've never even looked into it. It just sounds weird. It sounds too good to be true. That's one of those.
It is. It's good. It's good at very specific points in time. For example, if returns are extremely high, but they usually push up the contract price anyway at those times. And you can like quickly buy a whole heap of hash power, mine, and then get out of it. But anyway, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks heaps for your time, Cameron, and all the best with everything. We'll come across you soon.
Thanks, Cameron.
Yeah, thanks.
See ya.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, bye.